Good evening. This is the meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:01 p.m. and the date is September 9, 2014. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board consists of 5 members and 2 alternates, the alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Present tonight are members Joan Kranansky, Lisa Carson, and alternates are Mr. Ed Baum and Ms. Ellen Salter. Both of them will be voting tonight. I am John Goldsey, the chair. Also present are zoning administrator Mr. John Paskey and secretary Mr. Paul Eschenbacher. The board operates according to the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The applicant or their representative will give reasons why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the applicant or the appellant or their representative will offer concluding summary or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code Section 230703B, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest, the spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code Section 230710C, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact based directly on the particular evidence presented to it that the standards and conditions imposed in the title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. Because of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions pertaining to the specific piece of property, a literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of the public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of the said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent of a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. Any person, resident or officer, department or appointed body of the City of Athens aggrieved by a decision of the board may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the board to the applicant. There's only one case tonight, and the case is number 1411V, a property at 10 South Green Drive. Athens River Gate LLC is the appellant. The board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Please be seated. Again, we have only one case. The case is number 1411V, Zone R3, and the address is 10 South Green Drive, and the appellant is Athens River Gate LLC. The appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 2310 Table A, a schedule of bulk controls, to allow construction of a multi-unit apartment building with total lot coverage of 77.5%, where 60% is the maximum allowed. Mr. Paskey, is there any updates since our last hearing?
Well, as you may remember, these gentlemen were here a couple months ago. They have come back with the new application. Basically what they've done is chopped off the third floor of the residential units of this building. So therefore, they're now in compliance with the height regulations. They're in compliance with the parking regulations. They're in compliance with the number of beds per square foot ratio regulation. As you stated, the only one that they're requesting now is the lot coverage variance at 77.5%, where 60% is the maximum. And I appreciate you fixing that. I had 79%, and that's what was advertised. But I missed some green space on the podium around the pool that we were able to deduct as well. So we've refigured that and calculated that in now. So, and just for your guys' point, or so you're aware, 10 South Green will probably not be the address on this long term. For now it is, but with the South Green extension, the little road in front of them, once we get that all deed figured out, who it belongs to, it'll have a new name some way, shape, or form, and we'll probably address the building off of that street, but we don't know for sure. But we'll get to that when that day comes, if this all goes through.
Okay. Kind of had a good sounding, but any question for Mr. Paskey? We have a letter in here from Fire Chief, Mr. Robert Reimer, that has approved the new plans. And at this point, we open the floor for any discussion from the appellant. Please state your name and your address for the record. That's fine.
Fisher, 207 North 4th Street, Columbus, Ohio. I'm the lawyer for the applicant. I also have with me tonight the applicant developers, Mr. Rick Margolis and Mr. Dave Anderson. I've got Gary Bruck, the project architect from Sullivan Bruck, and I've got Matt Leisure from MKSK, our landscape architect and land planner. So we've got a full complement of our development team here to hopefully address any questions you or folks in the audience may have for us. Appreciate the opportunity to come before you again. Mr. Paskey did a great job of explaining where we were then and where we are now. I hope you remember when we left last time with smiles on our faces. That was in part because some of you said, knock off that top floor and we hope to see you again. So here we are. We knocked off that top floor. Even some folks in the audience said that. So we're glad to be with you again tonight. We'd like to go over with you the changes from the last time, the May 13th hearing, to tonight. And for some reason, it's not coming up on the screen. A little technical difficulty.
I know they had some technical difficulties.
Yeah, he was over here on it working on it a little earlier, so we got to check it again. Said he had to disconnect. Here he comes.
He's he's working all by himself. So usually they have a team of directors and
Right?
people running the show.
One sec.
This door's locked.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
One sec here.
This shows you where we were May 13th when we came before you versus where we are tonight. On the left, May 13th, on the right tonight. Our first proposal had 312 beds, parking for 223 autos. We now have 232 beds, 232 parking spaces, so 1-for-1 ratio in compliance with your code. Before, we had 4 variance requests, as Mr. Paskey mentioned to you. The last time we were parking at 0.715 spaces per bed. We're now in compliance. Before, we were at 4.5 stories and needed a variance. Now we're in compliance. Before, we had a lot size with a 6,039 square foot deficiency. We're now in compliance. That leaves us with 1 variance, which is the lot coverage variance, which you can see was prior 81.5 and now is 77.4, or a 4% reduction. We also thought it might be interesting to share with you the relative economics of the proposal we brought before you the last time compared to this time. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, can you just roll back there a minute, Matt? This also is a drawing that shows the 4-story structure from May, the 3-story structure today. I'm sorry. Okay. This shows you the relative economics that were in our proposal before versus now. Before, we had about a $20 million project. Now we have about a $15 million project. Before, we're going to have about 140 construction jobs. Now we have 100. Before, we had about $200,000 in local income taxes from construction. Now we have about 150. Before, we had about $400,000 in fees to the city for permit and tap fees. Now we're at 340. Before, we were estimating annual real estate taxes generated from this property of $400,000. Now we're at $300,000. You can see most of the breakdown there. I think the most important one is the approximately $225 paid to the schools. Coming from a property currently tax exempt, pays no taxes to the schools. Goes on the tax rolls to pay $225,000 annually to the schools, which with no children to educate in return for those tax payments. Mr. Paskey reviewed with you generally our variance request tonight. Part of our presentation tonight is to discuss with you some facts and circumstances surrounding our variance requests that we hope will have you see how hard we've worked to minimize the variance and to, in addition, mitigate its influence on this property and on the city of Athens. In preparing for our presentation for you tonight, we did a couple of things in addition to working really hard to minimize that variance. We went back to try to understand the basis and background for why the city implemented the total lot coverage ordinance back about 3.5 years ago. What we found from both Planning Commission notes and City Council minutes was that the principal espoused purpose of the total lot coverage ordinance was stormwater management, that there was a concern in the city that as people continued to pave whole lots, it was going to impact stormwater management in a very difficult way, and as new regulations come along from the state and from the federal government, it would be more and more difficult for the city to comply. That's not to say that the city wasn't also interested in green space along the way. And in talking to Mr. Paskey, he also shared with us that in addition to those two factors, stormwater management and green space, there was also the concern that the city of Athens is a Tree City USA and is proud of that designation and wants to maintain that designation and wants to increase its tree canopy over the years. We also took some time to look at the last comprehensive plan done by the city of Athens. And I have to tell you, I don't know if any of you were on that group, but it was a fabulous comprehensive plan. I don't want to tell you how many nights I spend reading comprehensive plans. You guys did a great job. I mean, the City of Athens has a very comprehensive and easy to read and exciting plan in terms of the vision for this city going into the future. So I compliment you as a city on that. But we found a couple of themes in the comprehensive plan that we think are important and should be a part of our consideration and your deliberations tonight. One was a recognition that Ohio University will continue to expand and will continue to have enrollment growth, both of which are important to the long-term economic health of the city of Athens. Second, there was a recognition that higher density development is most appropriate near the Ohio University campus in places like the area referred to in that comprehensive plan as the Mill Street neighborhood. Those of you who worked on that plan, our property isn't in a neighborhood, but it's directly adjacent to the Mill Street neighborhood. I'm assuming those that were on the plan said that's not a neighborhood, that's kind of part of the overall OU campus. But we're directly adjacent and to the south and east of that Mill Street neighborhood. Third, there was a desire on the part of those writing the plan to improve the quality and appearance of off-campus student housing and address the nuisance issues that have been a part of student living in Athens for years. Fourth was a recommendation that in areas closer to Ohio University, the quality of urban environments would be important and what are known as new urbanist principles would be supported. Those new urbanist principles in planning circles are such things as walkability of the neighborhood, higher density development, higher quality of construction, and buildings fronting on streets. There was also recognition of an increased need for bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. There was an identified need to preserve and expand owner-occupied housing stock around the city. There was an express need to maintain the city's tree canopy, part of that Tree City USA thing. And there was a recognition that parking should be located to the side or rear of buildings, not in front. I would submit to you as we go through our plan tonight, and as we talk about this plan, you're going to see, I hope, that a lot of the principles espoused in your comprehensive plan have been met in our proposed development. Mr. Golsey, you always do a great job of explaining the role of EZA. I got to compliment you on that. And, you know, there's some important words in there, talking about things like, is what we're proposing contrary to the public interest? Is it within the spirit of the code? Are public safety and welfare secured and substantial justice done? We hope to meet and exceed the bar tonight before this Planning Commission to show you that indeed we do deserve this variance. In our planning for this project, we have made some specific commitments that, while not to be considered as, aha, they no longer need the variance, we think they are commitments that are important to you in your deliberations, because your code also provides that you can impose specific requirements on developers in return for the variance. And so we'd like to point out a couple of things to you here. The blue area is what's known as pervious concrete. So that's parking for this project, but it allows water to filtrate through as opposed to picking it up in a storm drain and managing it on-site and then off-site. Secondly, you'll notice the amount of parking we have, including what we call grass pavers at the northern edge of the property. Those are an accepted parking technique used. They support automobile traffic, but when cars are not parked there, they add to green space and they add to storm water management. In our discussions with folks in the city of Athens from various quarters, there seems to be somewhat of a tacit recognition that student housing complexes near campus near or on campus, I should say, park at about a 75% ratio to rooms. We're, of course, going to park at 100% ratio to beds. But to help us understand and help you understand our proposal tonight, we had our folks on the ground, and Tara, our property manager, is here tonight. To the extent you have specific questions for her, we have monitored parking on the River Park and River's Edge projects, which are owned by the same development group, since they acquired them about 3 years ago. And we think we have some pretty strong empirical data that we'll share with you to show how we park right now. Right now, those facilities park at about 70% of the beds and about 80% of the parking spaces. And we've got a couple of slides that demonstrate that. Matt, can you bring those up? Yeah, I picked some rough numbers, but you can see down at the bottom, that's about where we end up. Some park more intensely than others, and this is the current year right now, but Matt, we also have one for historic. That's at the end, okay. So well, can we pull that one up real quick, or is that too hard to get to? I'd like to show that one now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Zip through here.
Great, okay. Great, so you can see I picked those numbers from those percentages that show you that we're in the range of 70% of beds and 80% of parking spots available. That is to say, those two projects don't park at a 1-to-1 ratio for beds. But we also have a slide or two that shows you, and these are recent slides the last couple days, that show you how they're parking right now. And you can see that, and these are, let's flip off that page. You can see that there are parking spaces available at different times of the day in these parking lots. Once again, the current projects that don't park at a 1-to-1 bed ratio. And we also have with us all our parking logs, if you care to see that. It's a big stack of paperwork. But the last time we were together, there was some question about, gee, are these the right numbers? And we're trying to give you as much empirical data as we can to say, we think these are the right numbers. I mean, we've managed this property. It's not in our best interest to not have a property that's sufficiently parked. And we have some history, and we have some data that we wanted to share with you in that regard. There's also a discussion that we have from time to time with various points about parking on weekends versus during the week. We hear the comment, well, you might, and I think that came up at the last hearing, well, they might park okay during the week, but when everybody comes in on the weekends, look out. What's interesting is our data doesn't support that because of the number of our student occupants who leave for the weekend. So there's sort of a trade-off with those going home and those coming into town. But regardless, we're parked at 1-to-1. But what we want to focus on with you, what you think is so important, Matt, can you go back to the pervious and the grasscrete slide? What we want to focus on with you is we really think this grasscrete is an interesting, innovative solution to the parking issue because we don't think it's going to be used that much, but when it's needed, it's there. And when it's not needed, you got fabulous stormwater capabilities arising out of it, and you got green space arising out of it. I would submit to you, you know, at least 3 or 4 months a year, it's going to be totally green. A time of the year when there's a lot of thunderstorms and you're worried about stormwater management. So we would submit to you, we think between the pervious concrete that assists with stormwater management, the bioretention that you see there, and the grass pavers, we are really trying hard to solve the parking problem and to solve the total lot coverage problem. Granted, indirectly, but we're trying hard nonetheless. And you can see some statistics on the side here that Matt's put together that if you add up the sum total of all of those features that lend to the green nature of the site, over 40% of this site is green. We're not asking you to give us credit for them. We're not saying, therefore, we don't need a variance. But what we're saying to you is, please take this into consideration, that you have a developer here who is working extremely hard to mitigate the issues involved. And in return, we think is going to provide you an extremely high-quality development along the way. The other thing we'd like to consider with you is trees. Remember the comment earlier about Tree City USA? Your zoning, your tree code only requires trees of a caliper of 1.5 inches be planted at initial development. We had initially proposed a 2-inch caliper tree, but are willing, which shows here, but are willing to go to a 4-inch caliper tree at initial planting. You can see the difference in size on the top side, and you can see the difference in height and fullness of the tree in the lower slide. So coming out of the box, day one with this development, you're going to have a lot more green on this space than you otherwise would have. Consider this, the either or of green space versus trees. If you have a tree planted in a 3-foot by 3-foot box, and that tree grows, or even comes in at 4-inch caliper versus 2-inch caliper, imagine the green canopy of that tree, much larger than the 3-foot by 3-foot space in which it's planted. Matt, can you go to those other slides on that, please? So this depicts for you, on the left at the top is the 2-inch caliper tree if we planted all 2-inch caliper trees in installation. Once again, 1/2 inch more than your code requires. If we planted 4-inch at installation, you can see the difference. And then look at 10 years down at the bottom. On the left is 2-inch, on the right is 4-inch. And I think we have another slide on this, don't we, Matt? And once again, 2-inch on the left. Wait, this is the slide we just did. On 2-inch, this is another perspective. 2-inch on the left, 4-inch on the right. 10 years, 2-inch on the left, 4-inch on the right. And you have one more, right?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. So we're offering that to you in your deliberations. And as I mentioned earlier, you have the right to specify standards to us in return for the variance. We would welcome you to specify that requirement to go from a 2-inch caliper to a 4-inch caliper tree. We think that would go a long ways towards greening this site and towards assisting this great city in accomplishing its Tree City USA goals. I mentioned to you a little bit ago about a tree on a 3-foot by 3-foot green space. We really want you to think about the quality of green space versus the quantity of green space. We think we're offering every bit of the green space here is very high quality, including the grass creek. We get the reason for the total lot coverage requirement. We do. We understand it. We know why you need it. It's fair to ask for it. We see areas of the city where single-family homes have been converted to student housing, and there's a sea of parking around that house in a neighborhood. We understand the need for the city to do that. We also think there's some special considerations that should be taken into account with respect to our request. Our sidewalks are inside of our property line because 10 South Kingdom Drive is a private street. So while sidewalks are typically in the right-of-way, our sidewalks are within our boundaries. If you add those sidewalks back, they represent about 2.8% on the second block. 2.8% is sidewalks and curbing on our property that would normally be in the right-of-way. Our use of grass street to assist with parking and to mitigate stormwater is 6.3%. That's in the top box, the second item. And as the owner of the River's Edge project to the north, the River's Edge project has some excess green space. We know you can't count off-site green space. We're not asking you to change the rules. We're not asking you to say, these guys met the bar on green space because of this. We're simply asking you to consider the fact that one owner owns 3 adjoining properties, and the property directly north, directly across from that grass street, you'll see the black line midway up and in the green above it. That's additional green space that accounts for about 6.4% of the requirement that will remain green space on the River's Edge project. And then lastly, our walkway and entrance feature, because of its location and because we're raising the property up out of the floodplain, has to be more massive than a typical entrance feature would be, and that accounts for about 1%. So if you add all that up, you can see that those mitigating factors equal about 16.6% of the excess lot coverage when we're over by 17.5. Not asking you to change the rules, simply asking you to consider it in your deliberations as a mitigating factor. The other concern that I think has to be to the fore is to talk about OU and students and growth. Here are projections on, or excuse me, here's historic information on student growth at OU from 2006 to 2013. And you can see during that time period, there's a 2,500 student increase. And we all hear the information and see the information that OU is going to continue to grow at a pace at which they will not be providing housing for all those students, and therefore that housing has to be accomplished by the private community. Keep in mind your comp plan that I mentioned earlier that says the area where we're located is where that student housing should be. It should be high quality, and it should be higher density in that area. We've got 6 factors to consider tonight. Mr. Goldsey did a great job of going over those. We expect you, and we know you will, weigh all those factors in your deliberations and make a decision whether to or not to grant this variance. We'd like to go through our version of how we think the findings of fact should be considered from the developer's perspective as a part of the discussion tonight. Keeping in mind, as Mr. Goldsey mentioned earlier, what your job and your role is. Also keeping in mind that when you consider this difficulty or hardship, you need to include topographical conditions or extraordinary situations or conditions on the property immediately adjacent to our property, as well as exceptional situations that may be related to flood damage prevention regulations. As you know, this property is located in the floodplain. So no matter how it's developed, whether you bring in a whole bunch of dirt and raise it up or do it like we're proposing, it is in a special area due to its floodplain designation. So your first finding of fact is practical difficulty due to an undue hardship. We would submit to you that this property is a parcel of remaining acreage on its north and west sides has university student housing developments already developed, has the OU campus to its south and the Hocking Conservancy District to its east. It is situated in the floodplain, and by allowing us to develop it as we proposed, this development can proceed in a manner consistent with these adjoining developments and these existing site conditions. We would submit to you that the proposal meets the standards of 23.07.03 B1 based on the topographical conditions being the floodplain, which is also an exceptional situation under your code, and the existing condition on adjoining properties. Additionally, your code section 23.07.10C1 provides that the practical difficulty or undue hardship test is met if literal enforcement of the zoning code would result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. I want to say it again, unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. During our presentation this evening, we hope we've demonstrated that the public purposes of the City of Athens, as set forth in the history behind the Total Lot Coverage Ordinance and the Comprehensive Plan, will be achieved by our proposed development and allowing it to proceed will be in keeping with the public standards. We strongly believe that our variance meets the practical difficulties test of the zoning code. To not permit this development to proceed with the variance will indeed create an undue hardship on the applicant. It will not be able to develop the property consistent with other nearby properties and site conditions being the floodplain. This property should be entitled to enjoy the same development attributes of these nearby properties. I know you can't understand, I know you can't deliberate or decide based upon economics, but I want to share with you, given the location of this property, the added development costs to deal with the floodplain are approximately $1 million. And to build a project of the quality we're proposing will yield a pretty low, what's known as return on investment of 6% for the developer, which is, by developer standards, a very low return. But this client and this developer owns the 2 adjoining properties. It's committed to OU. It loves the city of Athens. It loves the OU campus, and it wants to continue to provide high-quality housing opportunities to students at Ohio University. Number 2 is your exceptional circumstances fact. We would propose that the development does contain exceptional circumstances for the following reasons. Number 1, the parcel is located in a floodplain, which makes it difficult and costly to develop in a manner consistent with nearby student housing projects. Number 2, the location adjacent to the Ohio University campus will permit student residents to travel to and from campus and downtown without the use of automobiles, thereby assisting in alleviating traffic and parking congestion in the city of Athens. Number 3, it's adjacent to large areas of green space, open space, floodplain, playing fields, and bike paths, thereby surrounding the property with abundant green space. Number 4, the developer is willing to make commitments to this board to install pervious pavement and grasscrete, thereby assisting the city in its stormwater management, a principle of the city of Athens at the time it implemented the lot coverage ordinance. And number 5, if BZA requests us to install the larger trees to green up the site and all the attributes that come with those, as we explained earlier, we are happy to make that commitment and do it. So the property in this proposed development are unique and should be distinguished for these reasons from other properties in the R3 zoning category. Number 3 is your factor preservation of equal property rights. I would ask you, in considering finding 3, to keep in mind the language of the zoning code that discusses these property rights in the context of other properties in the same zone, R3, and the same vicinity, which is purely a geographic designation. The applicant's only seeking 1 variance, and in doing so has pointed out the unique characteristics of this property and development as it relates not only to the R3 zoning class, but also to the geographic area in which this property is located, one of your standards. These include, number 1, the difficult and costly price to develop in the floodplain. Number 2, close proximity to the campus and similar student housing projects. Number 3, abundant green space in close proximity. Number 4, commitments by the developer to assist in stormwater management. And number 5, if requested by this board, the installation of larger caliper trees to assist in greening the space. One of the primary purposes of this board is to grant variances in those situations where a proposed development or activity merits a variance from strict interpretation of the code. We respectfully submit that no special privilege will be given to the applicant by granting this variance, and that the unique characteristics of this development and the commitments made will preserve equal property rights and indeed merit special consideration of the requested variance. Your factor 4, minimum variance. We believe this lot coverage variance is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of this property. Once again, realize you can't consider economics, but reasonable use. What is reasonable? I will tell you that my clients have batted this thing around back and forth for months since the last time we came to see you, and they have tried their hardest to come up with a project that they can be proud of, that the city of Athens can be proud of, that meets your standards and your code and the goals and objectives of your city and its comprehensive plan. In designing this development, given its location and dimensions and its adjacency to other developments already in place and site conditions, we've worked really hard to come to this one variance and to minimize it as much as possible. Number 5 factor is absence of detriment. We don't believe that authorizing this lot coverage variance will be a detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purposes of the zoning code or the public interest. This development will be in keeping with the development that's already occurred on adjacent and nearby properties and will in fact enhance those properties from the current state of disrepair of the church. I don't know if we've been down there recently, but since the church has moved out, and even before it moved out. The purposes of the zoning code will be well served due to the unique nature and location of the property and the commitments that the applicant is willing to make in return for the requested variance. The project will be directly adjacent to similar student housing and will indeed promote the public interest by providing a safe, secure living environment for Ohio University students in close proximity to classes and other university activities with no need to use an automobile. Factor number 6, not of a general nature. Once again, we think given the unique location of the property and its proximity to the Ohio University campus and other nearby student housing developments, and the fact the property is located within floodplain and surrounded by abundant green space, and the commitments to employ stormwater management, green space, and parking principles make this request not of a general nature. By granting the variance, you will not create precedent of a recurring nature, and that this is one of the last available properties in this area, and permitting this development to proceed will merely permit completion of development in an area consistent with past development. And we will make a strong commitment to you and to the Athens community that sets a high and unique bar to address the specific conditions set forth in our variance request. So in conclusion, we only have one variance request. I know it's a tough one, but we have one variance request. We've limited it to the maximum extent possible while offering the city of Athens some strong commitments that will help offset and mitigate the requested variance. We think we've demonstrated compliance with your comp plan and have shown a number of mitigating factors for your consideration. We've talked about the OU student growth. There's nobody closer than this piece of property to the OU campus that's not OU owned. We think this is a prime location to help the university and help the city deal with that growth that your comp plan acknowledged was important to the city and that we know is coming from OU's reports. And by seeking a lot coverage variance, realize we could have come back again and sought one variance. We could have sought a parking variance. And you saw our statistics there earlier about empirically what we can show to you about how we park. So we couldn't come back with that data and say, wait a minute, why don't you not make us park at 1-to-1? But we heard you and heard the audience loud and clear last time that parking was the big issue, and the concern about if there's not enough parking here, and I don't know all the streets of your fair city, I've driven a lot of them, but if they don't park here, they're going to go park up in my neighborhood or park up in my neighborhood or park up in my neighborhood. What we heard at the last hearing, and we hope we heard correctly, is that parking was a huge part of our proposal before. So we could have come back, in fact, we even talked to Mr. Paskey about this. We could have come back and said, we'll meet your lot coverage, but in doing so, we're going to ask you to waive and give us a variance on parking. We're going to do that. But I would submit to you, by what we've done, we've given you the best of both worlds. Because you got one-to-one parking for beds. We're asking for a lot coverage variance, but our data, and I think general feeling in the community about the 75% parking ratio, we're giving you more parking than is going to be used every day of the year. Every day of the year. And when it's not used, guess what? It's going to be green. We would submit to you that we're giving you the best of all worlds by giving you all the parking that was so important at the last hearing and designing that parking in such a way that it mitigates significantly our request for a lot coverage requirement variance. During the presentation, I shared with you we've complied with 2 out of the 3 factors that were set forth in the rationale behind the total lot coverage variance. We met stormwater management and we met Tree City USA. We just can't quite get there on green space, but doggone it, we're trying awful hard. We want you to focus on quality as well as quantity of green space. Think trees, think 4-inch caliper, not 2-inch caliper. Think the location of the parking of this property, behind the building. Think the pervious pavement, and think the grasscrete that we're offering. I would submit to you that this development provides a basis for the city and this board to raise the bar on all developers to offer high-quality, sustainable student housing that addresses the needs of the city and the spirit and intent of the zoning code and the comprehensive plan of the city of Athens, Ohio. Thank you for your time and attention tonight. I know it was a long presentation, but I wanted to get through it with you. We had a lot of important things to say, and we look forward to working with you and those in the audience here tonight as we continue your deliberations tonight.
Well, thank you, Mr. Fisher. It was a great presentation and very informative. I would only ask the next presenters, limit their discussion to anything that he may not have said. And I think he said everything, so we want to make it kind of a brief. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on behalf of this proposal? No? Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in general comment? So there must be some opposing. Is anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard now. Yes, sir. Please come to the podium and state your name and your address for the record.
I don't want to mess this up.
That's fine. I think, Matt, can you just
I'll
close
leave it
it?
up to.
No, just, is it in your way?
It's
Okay,
fine.
that's great.
I'll
Thanks.
get around it. Thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Ryan. I'm an attorney in town with law office at 18 West State Street. I represent a group of commercial real estate owners.
Just a little.
I'm sorry. My name is Kenneth Ryan. I'm an attorney here in Athens, Ohio, with my law office at 18 West State Street. I represent a group of commercial real estate owners within the cities of Athens and speaking in opposition to this project. I can appreciate what the developers and what they are trying to accomplish here. They've obviously put a tremendous amount of time, effort, and energy into developing this project. And it is clear that they have a unique interest in this project and an interest in the city of Athens. However, I don't think that they've actually fully addressed what the directives of the zoning code are and your charge in following those directives. The primary directive, as was indicated by our chair and by council, was that 230703B would indicate where the authority of the Board of Zoning Appeals, where that authority comes from and how that authority and decision-making is to take place. So the power of the BZA to authorize a variance is strictly limited, not broadly limited or liberally granted, but strictly limited to those exceptional situations where, owing to special conditions on the property in question, and that is to say, the property itself, whether it's exceptionally narrow, shallow, unusual shape, topographical conditions, extraordinary situations, or the property immediately adjoining the pieces of property in question, where the literal enforcement of those would involve undue difficulty or hardship, that they have the power to relieve such hardship. The hardship and the topographical nature that is considered unique that was articulated is that it's in the flood zone. That really appears to be about it. I mean, obviously their housing is near other student housing and near the university, but that would be true of many other properties throughout the city of Athens. I don't believe that they have demonstrated that this primarily rectangular piece of property is so unique that it would prevent other adjoining property owners and other developers in that same area to try to accomplish the same thing they've done here. Their presentation, their proposal is admirable, but it just simply doesn't fit within the 60% that is dictated by the code. Clearly, they have the skills and the resources to present this. They certainly have the skills and resources to fit within that area, within the parameters of the code. So I would submit that they've not demonstrated that this is such a unique situation that would require a variance. I would also submit that it would grant special privilege to them that would not necessarily be afforded to others unless they simply came forward with the same plan. These are not the only developers who seek to develop in the city of Athens. There are others. By granting this variance, I think you are creating a blueprint for other developers as to how they could simply get around this variance. So I would submit that the variance should not be granted. Again, they are very sophisticated, very skilled developers. Their presentation is the example of that. I believe that they can fit within the variance. I would ask that they do so. I don't think they've demonstrated a unique hardship. And I would also submit that the fact that they've went forward with this plan, that it's clear that they understand that the limits of the code, and they understand that the project is going to be a financial success, whether this variance is granted or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any question from the board?
Yeah, I guess I have a question. I have to think about how I want to put this. I guess I'm curious about the basis of the objection to the project of those that you represent. I mean, are the people that you're representing here, would they have no objection to the project if it were reformulated in a way that did fit with the code in terms of lot coverage?
Absolutely. There would be no objection, certainly no basis for it.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Fisher, before you respond, I missed to ask my colleagues to ask you if you had any questions. So, are there any questions for Mr. Fisher? No? Okay. You may respond.
I have
now
a
if
question.
You have a question?
I did have a question, yeah.
Okay, let's answer her question first. No, you can go to the podium, please. Yeah.
I have a question about something that wasn't brought up in the presentation, but it's in the material. The Athens River Gate. It's just I don't know, it's just an informational sort of few pages that we got from you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a section about the River Village concept and how the new apartments are meant to fit in with the other two that are. I was wondering, because it says the applicant is aware of and fully appreciates the past, quote, party image of the River Park and River's Edge project and has worked extremely hard to change this image. Statistical information available from the applicant and the city bear out the success of this program. Just curious about what that's referring to?
My clients acquired this property about 3 years ago, and it did have a reputation at the time they acquired it as a party venue. This would be the River Park and River's Edge properties. And they have worked extremely hard to change that image, and I think there's some examples in there of the policing, on-site policing by them, and reporting mechanisms for students that are unruly or engage in a party atmosphere. They get one warning. The second time, a note goes to the parent who has co-signed the lease saying your child's going to be kicked out if this continues. And Tara, our property manager here tonight, as well as Dave Anderson, and she can maybe give you a more specific detail if you like it, but I think that the police department has experienced significantly less runs to this property. It does not have, in any way, shape, or form, the party reputation that a lot of the other student venues have around Athens. And that is totally due to the developer saying, that's not the kind of student that we want to have on our properties. And that is also managed by things like rental rates. They want to have high-class properties with excellent amenities and furnishings so that they attract the highest quality student that wants to live in close proximity to campus. Also keep in mind, I mentioned a minute ago that the parents are guaranteeing these lease obligations of their students. Parents come and they look and say, this is the kind of venue I want my student to live in, not a party venue. Terry, anything more to add to that? Okay.
We don't have police activity. That has happened in the past.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr.
Just if you give me one more second, I need to ask one more time, is there anyone else who would like to speak in opposition? No? Okay, thank you. Mr. Fisher, go ahead.
Great, thanks. Thanks, Mr. Ryan, for your comments. Thanks for coming tonight. We respectfully disagree. We do think we, in our remarks and in our filing, demonstrate an exceptional situation. I think and it falls squarely within your code in terms of the location of this property, the floodplain, and the adjacency of property. So we strongly disagree that it is not a special situation. I think floodplain areas specifically called out in your code in that regard. We think it is unique. We think that your comprehensive plan acknowledges that this area is unique. We think that when he says others in the same area could do the same thing, there is no area left down there to develop in this fashion. Even if you go to what's known as the Mill Street neighborhood, your comprehensive plan talks about how that area should develop. We talked about a special privilege. We maintain that we have not and are not asking for a special privilege here. We think site conditions and exceptional circumstances that we went through in strong detail with you as we went through this presentation support that we're not asking for a special privilege. There was a statement that we were creating a blueprint for others. I would submit to you that if there's any blueprint we're submitting for others, it's the quality of the development, it's the walkability, it's the sustainability, it's the extraordinary commitments being made by this developer in return for the variance. So if we want to talk about a blueprint, we think we laid a pretty good one before you tonight to raise the bar for all developers in the city of Athens that want to seek a variance. They really ought to not be able to just show up and say, give me my variance. They ought to meet or exceed the same bar that we brought before you tonight. He mentioned financial success of this property without the variance. You're not allowed to consider that. We're not allowed to make it a topic of the conversation. I can tell you he's dead wrong. I gave you the numbers. No matter what you do down there, whether you bring in truckload after truckload after truckload after truckload of fill or build it on a podium like we've proposed, the bottom line is it doesn't make any sense for this developer or any developer to develop that property with anything near the kind of proposal that we're bringing to you tonight. I appreciate his comments that his clients would have no objection if we didn't seek the variance, but then again, they'd have nothing to object to, would they? and he wouldn't be here, would they? And they wouldn't pay him, would they? I mean, let's also consider the competitive aspects of this. You have a very competitive student housing market in Athens, Ohio. We saw that at the last hearing. We see it tonight. People don't want any more student housing that competes with them. Look at the growth numbers I gave you from OU. Sooner or later, this is all going to need to be dealt with. And we're proposing tonight that we're dealing with it in the most efficient and effective manner with the minimum variance being requested. And in return for that, we're willing to make extremely strong commitments to the City of Athens and this board in return for the granting of the variance.
I have
Thank
a
you, sir.
question, John.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm trying to figure out exactly who we're dealing with here. I know that the limited liability company that's listed on the variance, and that is composed of two affiliated Ohio-based entities.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, Mrs. Krasinski, earlier. Here's the difference between May 13th and tonight.
Right, because
May 13th, the church still owned the property.
Oh, okay, I don't care about that.
Yeah, well, no, but
I know that. We
on
know
the
that.
earlier application, we showed Columbus Pacific Properties, Ohio-based, and we showed Homestead U, Ohio-based,
Correct.
as the two applicants. My office, created a limited liability company for them to own the property. It's the same people that were here last time, Rick Margolis and Dave Anderson. They've simply put the property in an entity to own it. Same people, same cast of characters, same development team.
Okay, and these are the same people that have 5,500 beds of university student housing in Ohio, Texas, and Arizona.
That's right.
And so what is the branch or arm that's out in Santa Ana, California, who actually bought the property?
They're all done it's Santa Monica, California.
Or Santa Monica?
Santa Monica.
They're all done with the same development group. By the way, I represent them. I'm proud to represent them on everything they do. Hope I can get to continue. And it is the exact same group, exact same people on every student housing. What happens, Mr. Krasinski, the financial markets require each one of them to have a separate limited liability company to own it. So we set up a separate company to own each one of those different projects because the finance markets require that. Same people, same players, same developers, same management, same ownership.
Okay, and the company that is actually in control and has ownership of this property and is building this project is based...
Athens Rivergate LLC, which is based in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. That was my question. I guess my second question is, it doesn't say exactly, well, it's hard to say, I mean, the way companies come and go and integrate. But I guess I would be interested in knowing if any of you, how long you hold on to your projects. How long do this organization or...
By the way, that's a great question because there's a lot of what's known as flipping in the business.
Right.
Especially student housing.
So you come and you go, and then who's going to water the trees?
And student housing is, I will submit to you, is
Right.
an area rife for that. These people have a fully integrated property development, ownership, and management model. They're long-term players. They bought River Park and River's Edge as relatively old, somewhat run-down properties. We talked about the party atmosphere and the nuisance aspects of that. They are long-term players. This is a portfolio.
When you say long-term, what does long-term mean to you?
Well, they're still pretty young right now. I think.
I'm just, we're talking 5 years, 10 years.
No, I think it's 10-year plus hold. Yeah. Yeah, they are institutional in their investment. And by the way, they also have investors that expect an institutional long-term return. Once again, I work on all that for them. So this is not, and I know some of the people you're talking about that have come to Athens and built projects, and you're absolutely right. You can make a fortune.
I'm not referring to anyone in particular.
But you're absolutely right. You can make a fortune developing a project and selling it the day you finish it. I would submit to you They already own River Park and River's Edge. They've already demonstrated a long-term, thus far 3 years. They hope it's 10 to 20 in Athens. They're simply not going to build this project and sell it. In fact, this young lady next to you, I'm sorry, your name escapes me?
Lisa Carson.
Ms. Carson mentioned the River Village concept, and it's in our other presentation materials.
Right.
That's part of our branding. So, for example, in one of the markets they're in, it's branded as The Ranch. That's several projects out in Arizona. This is going to be branded as River Village so that the students who live here, whether they live in River Park, River's Edge, or River Gate, can say, I live in River Village. So this is a long-term investment institutional type play for Mike Lyons.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Anything
sir.
else? Okay, thank
sir.
you.
We close the discussion from the floor. And Mr. Paskey, I have a quick question for you. Is this something new that you have never considered, like the paver green parking concept you've been considering it as a part of a lot coverage?
I know that our stormwater management specialist and would love this concept. I think it's great. It's something that I do like for bioretention and for impervious pavement. They've demonstrated in this situation that they're not counting that within their numbers. So if they were to pave over it, the variance is still as being requested.
Yeah.
It is something that our stormwater management team has discussed. It's how do we monitor it, how do we maintain it sort of issue that concerns us throughout the city with other projects. So it is a topic we have talked about quite a bit, and it's definitely the future. There's no doubt about it. I just don't know how we as a city would have a handle on it with our locals in town as the way. For example, somebody allows it, or we grant them a variance allowing it based on that, and then they come in 5 years later and pave over the whole thing. Now they don't have the variance for it, plus they just lost the impervious. What they're demonstrating is that they're still, still requesting the variance. So if they were to someday pave over that green parking, it's still in there, but it definitely, I don't know, I don't think I've had Abbott Stevenson here to speak, or if she spoke at City Council one evening. If she was here, she would definitely love this concept.
All right, thank you. Any discussions before we entertain a motion?
I don't have the form. I forgot to bring my copy of the original letter, so I know what to say.
Oh,
I'll be glad to. There it is.
So are we going to include the 4 caliber trees as opposed to?
You listen to my motion.
Okay, I'm waiting. Well, I didn't know you didn't. I can't read.
well, before you make the motion, let's discuss that
Well,
maybe.
Hey, if they're willing to do it, I'm willing to say, let's have it as a condition. It'll improve the attractiveness of the property overall.
Keep the building in itself cooler. I mean,
Yes.
it's just so much to be said for trees.
I mean, I myself, I'm okay with the 2-inch, but Lisa, what do you think?
I'm not sure I really have an opinion about requiring it.
Alan?
I would say if they're willing to do it.
Yeah, I would say if they're willing
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, why would we not? It's like
But
if somebody was
you
gonna-
want to make a condition.
I will make, well, they said if we made it a condition, they would do it.
Yeah,
The implication
so-
was if we didn't make it a condition, they might not do it.
I say your condition must be on condition that the Shade Tree Commission is okay with it.
Yeah, okay.
So they may come back and say, we don't want 4-inch for whatever reason. I have no idea, but just
They can
throw
always
that in
trump
there.
us.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I have
Yeah.
a question. Could a similar requirement be that they put the pervious concrete concrete in there? Or you're just saying that the variance wouldn't say anything about that?
Right now, I didn't count it. I am still counting it as an impervious surface in my numbers and my calculation. That's what puts it at 77.5%. If we take that out and count the impervious areas, that actually puts them down to 60%, and they
They
wouldn't be
wouldn't
here.
need the variance.
Right,
Okay.
so I'm still counting that as pervious surface because I'm being very careful that we don't set a precedent where everybody comes in here and says, I want a variance because I'm meeting impervious concrete for pavement, because I don't want to go there yet until we get a handle on this. So that's why
Okay.
I'm still looking at it as a complete project.
Okay.
Okay.
I
Mr.
move
Brown.
that the Board of Zoning Appeals grant a variance from ACC 2310 Table A, Schedule of Bulk Controls, to allow construction of multi-unit apartment building with a total lot coverage of 79%, where 60% is the maximum. Total lot coverage of 77.5%, where 60% is the maximum allowed, with the condition that the 4-inch caliper trees be included as part of the process.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second, and let's go through the findings quickly. And I'm not going to read the entire text. Exceptional circumstances. Are there exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question, or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone? Ended up reading it.
Well, I feel that floodplain issue makes the property exceptional, the circumstances exceptional.
The
Well,
uniqueness.
I don't know that that's exceptional. The last time we had this discussion when they were here, because they have the exception, but they've almost given themselves the handicap for it because then they're parking underneath, right? So the exception actually becomes a benefit to them that gives them the opportunity to put parking underneath. The other option would be to build it up. So I'm not sure I see that as an exception, but
Well, I see the uniqueness of the location. I see that the green paver thing we discussed. The sidewalk is considered as part of it.
oh, absolutely, yes, those
Yeah.
are, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. And again, we are only looking at one variance, and this is lot coverage. And, are we going to create a hardship for them if we don't give this variance? And I think we would.
Yep. Agreed.
Preservation of equal property rights.
I think it's obvious that the other properties in that very vicinity have similar situations and conditions.
And minimum variance. I think this would be a minimum variance. Absence of detriment. There's no evidence of that. And not of a general nature. No. Are we ready to vote? Mr. Baum, let me start with you.
Yes.
Ellen?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
And I vote yes, so you have the variance.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The only item left for our agenda tonight is the deposition of the minutes from August 12, 2014 meeting. Did you all have a chance to read it?
I did, and I'd like to propose a change.
Okay.
And it's on page 2. I didn't print out the minutes, but, and it was at the end of the first case, when I proposed that we split the two issues and vote on them separately, and it says after it states that in the minutes, and the reason I didn't email this to you, Paul, and I apologize for this, is because I wanted to bring it up here, at least so everyone could hear it. And it said in the minutes the secretary suggested that the appellant would have to give his approval of such an action. But when I looked at the tape, actually what the secretary did was he said, and I quote, "Don't you have to have the appellant's permission to do so?" So it wasn't that the secretary suggested it, the secretary questioned if we had to have the permission to do so. And what I would also like to have in the minutes is Ms. Hollow's comment, in the past we have done so without the appellant's permission. because I think that's important for future reference, and that's not in there.
Good point.
And only because we had these discussions after the fact, I think that it needs to, then it's documented. And so in the future, it's in the minutes. Had we just gone forward with what was there, there was really no conclusive thing, and we may have come up against that again. So if everybody's in agreement with that change,
Yes.
then I approve the
If you-
minutes.
If you want to do it formally, I move the approval of the change.
Okay, I second it. I made it, but
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Eschenbacher, you got all of that, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Motion to adjourn.
Well, let me ask a question. When are we going to discuss rules of procedure?
The rules and procedures needs a little bit more work, so
Oh,
it
okay.
will be here next month when everybody's here and we can all
Okay.
sign it.
Fair enough.
You,
So
Yeah,
I
had a
move
couple
to adjourn.
questions on that. I've been
Thanks.
busy with questions this
Yeah.
week, so I'm like, whatever. But otherwise, yeah. I move we adjourn. Did we adjourn?
Yeah, we adjourned.
Oh, we adjourned.